Welcome to Proverbs 31 Creatives. My name is Brianna Coleman. I'm so excited for this new chapter in my walk with the Lord. My goal with this podcast is to encourage other women to grow their creativity, entrepreneurship, finances, life, health, and most importantly, grow closer to Jesus. I'll be having conversations with guests with anointed women in faith and learning right along with you. Are you ready to start your journey to become the creative Proverbs 31 woman you've always wanted to be? All right, let's go. Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very special episode of Proverbs 31 Creatives. I'm your host, Brianna Coleman. Today, the project that I have co-labored with the Lord for the last year is launched. I am so excited to step into this next chapter. Just like this podcast, I never saw this one coming. If you have been with me from the very beginning, you know how much of a leap of faith that even recording this show was. It took me completely off guard. Believe it or not, I am an introvert. A lot of growth, to say the least, a lot of growth has come from producing now 46 episodes of this show. I have seen the Lord move in ways I didn't know was possible. To give a little bit of backstory, context, whatever you want, in July of 2024, a shaking began in my life that I never saw coming. There was a stirring in my spirit that I couldn't explain, but I knew to just hold on to the Lord and to trust Him because He was moving and shaking and aligning things in my life. And it was a point of anything that could be shaken was shaken. I've talked about this season in previous episodes, and I will actually be linking some of those episodes down in the show notes so you can, if you're new and haven't been here from the beginning, that's completely fine. Welcome. But just so you can understand what I'm talking about, all of that will make a lot more sense today. God began to prepare me in July of 2024 for what was about to take place in October of 2024. In July, God began to shift me and my husband out of the church that we were attending at that time. That felt like I was mourning a loss. But I also knew that I could not mourn what the Lord was removing. And we just felt in our spirits that we were needing more of a deeper connection with leadership, more deeper discipleship. We were so hungry for the Lord. At that same time, He was asking us to change churches. He also began to give me a distaste in my mouth for my career. At that time, I had the dream of building a social media management agency that covered Cincinnati, Dayton, Northern Kentucky. I had the dreams of building a local agency. I had the momentum. I hired my first employee. I had the clients. It was growing pretty quickly until God shifted me in a completely new direction. If you remember my episode where I spoke on senioritis about a situation, this is what I was referring to. I knew that the Lord had completely shifted me out of social media management. My clients could feel it. I could feel it. It was just a distaste in my palate. I knew what I was doing was not what I was supposed to be doing. God was shifting my appetite from what I wanted to what He wanted. His plan and not mine. I began to lean more into this podcast. I poured my heart into everything about this show. Week after week, staying up until 1, 2 a.m., editing an episode, making sure it got uploaded correctly, launching it, posting about it. I put everything into this show. There are days I don't understand how I got it all done, but only the strength of the Lord because of everything that I had on my plate, managing at one time, like 4 or 5 clients on top of running this show. I was so stretched thin, but it was the strength of the Lord that I was able to show up week after week. I finally started parting ways with my clients. And I was telling a friend of mine this recently, that in that season of knowing that I needed to part ways, out of the clients that I had, only one of them initiated, hey, we're going to part ways. And that simply was because it was a further client and she was moving her marketing in-house. But other than that, the Lord handed me the scissors to be obedient. He wanted me to make the, hey, we're going to part ways email. It would have been so easy for him to start to encourage my clients to fall away, but instead, he needed me to be obedient. I let my last client go in April of 2025. And like I just said, to be honest with you, I asked the Lord, I prayed this prayer and I asked God to have them fire me because I did not want to part ways because that was the only income that I had. And that was a sustainable source of income. And that meant everything that I had built was gone. Every single ounce of it. Them firing me would have been absolutely the easy way out. But God needed to see me obey his command and shut it all down. In October of 2024, the Lord began to show me a wide angle, bird's eye view lens, viewpoint, if you will, of the media industry. I had been working as a social media manager for a little over a year. I've been in the personal branding, Instagram space, social media space since probably about 2018. I've seen it grow. I've seen it evolve in a very short amount of time. Trends, as we all know, come and go. Even platforms and media outlets and media forms come and go. I understand how powerful media is. And when I got the revelation that there is a person behind every single account on every single social media platform, that 100 views that sometimes we complain about, that your video only got 100 views on a video you worked so hard for. Imagine if you showed that same video to a room of 100 people. It really puts it into perspective that even small beginnings can still be impactful. That 100 views is 100 people I'm impacting. And when I got that perspective switch, everything changed. If you don't already know your screen time on a daily basis, I encourage you to go and look at it. See how long you're on social media. See how long you're on your phone. We live in such a digital media age. Podcasts alone played one of the biggest, if not the biggest part in the election in 2024 for both Republicans and Democrats. If podcasts made that big of an impact on the election of the President of the United States, might I add, not just city council, but for President of the United States, podcasts made that big of an impact. People are on their phones for hours a day. Even if it's 1 hour, that's still an hour of your day. In a world overflooded with content, why wouldn't God want to be in the center of this industry? Why wouldn't Christians use their voice for the kingdom on platforms and preach the gospel? On podcasts, on social media. As I'm going through 2024 and I'm pouring myself into this show, into this podcast, growing with the Lord simultaneously, and he's showing me all of this. He begins to show me media companies, companies that hold such influence. Together, me and the Lord, we dove deep in research, in analytics, looking at numbers, seeing how these companies run. And do not get me wrong, I have looked up to the companies I researched. I've looked up to these companies for years. I honor and respect what they've built. But majority of the information that they're sharing is absolute garbage. Things that a Christian should not even be entertaining. I know for me, especially when I was in college, there were certain podcasts that I would listen to because they were entertaining. Now I don't touch those podcasts with a 10-foot pole. These podcasts give such bad advice, try to push agendas, try to push ideologies, things like party culture, giving into selfish desires, hookup culture, new age, self-help type of advice, pro-choice ideologies, encouraging same-sex relationships. All of these things that are not changing you for the better, and they are certainly not giving God glory. The Lord removed me so far from what I used to find as entertainment. And as my mom used to say growing up, garbage in, garbage out. What goes in is found out. As a Christian, we should be known by our fruit. What happens if you have a beautiful bowl of ripe orange, Florida oranges on the counter, and you put a single furry, decomposing, moldy orange in the center of that arrangement of beautiful oranges on the counter? It's not going to take long for that mold to grow, and then that one orange was all it took to spread to the other ones. It is our job to make the rest of the world look like Jesus. If you've been a Christian for any amount of time, you most likely have heard how Christians are supposed to be salt and light. Both salt and light change environments that they come in contact with. They don't conform, they don't affirm, they transform what they've come in contact with. Matthew 5:13 says, "Your lives are like salt among the people. But if you, like salt, become bland, how can your saltiness be restored? Flavorless salt is good for nothing and will be thrown out and trampled on by others." And that is the Passion Translation. This verse ministered to me so powerfully back in 2023. I had rededicated my life to Jesus in December of 2022, but I was still living very lukewarm in 2023 for majority of 2023. I hadn't gone completely in the deep end on fire for Jesus yet. But this verse played a huge part in taking me from lukewarm to on fire. I was living so half-heartedly. I was not salty. No one could tell from my fruit that I was a Christian. I was a good person, a nice person, but so was everybody else. I began to pray and ask the Lord to make me salty. But you know what you do to a vessel containing salt to make something have a salty flavor? If I had a plate of French fries with no salt, I'd have to take my salt shaker and shake the salt for my fries to become salty. You shake it. I prayed in 2023 for the Lord to make me salty. That led to the shaking in 2024, and that now leads us to 2025. With all of that being said, I am so grateful. I am overjoyed for this next phase of this journey with the Lord. We have co-labored this vision together for a year. and I bring it to you today. Introducing 513 Media, a media company that is built off of Matthew 5:13. Today is the first of many launches to come. Our first step into this media industry is a Christian podcast network built for prophetic, strong kingdom voices. I could not be more excited for the podcast hosts that are joining us. Some of them actually you already know listening to the show because they've been guests and they either had their own show or have launched their own show since being a guest on Proverbs 31 Creatives. The provision of this movement has only been the Lord. From doors opening that only He could have opened, to my gas tank supernaturally becoming full again. When we went down to Florida to get marketing content, to just the favor with networking and getting this company off the ground. When the Lord gave me this vision, I questioned it so many times. Like, God, did I hear you right? Are you sure? Am I worthy? Like, why did you pick me? I have no idea what I'm doing. But I know at the same time, that's how He gets the glory. This is not something I necessarily would have picked for myself because this is bigger than my wildest dreams. But looking back, it just makes complete sense with everything that He has walked me through. It has been an absolute joy of mine during this process is seeing others catch the vision and they want to be a part. They're so excited to be a part and they just are ready to go. They're ready to run and ready to help me run with this vision, run with this mission. And just a little icing on top, in case anybody doesn't know this, 513 is actually the area code of Cincinnati. And so when this verse started ministering to me back in 2023, I knew it was God winking at me that eventually at some point, Connor and I, my husband and I, were going to move to Cincinnati, which he always makes me say this. I moved back and he moved to Cincinnati because he is Florida born and raised. But this was actually his idea, not mine. But I'm so grateful for a husband that leads and listens to the Lord. But how I know that this is the Lord, and I have never been more sure of anything in my entire life. I mean, He gave me the brand colors. He gave me the launch date. And there's so many pieces to this. There's so many layers, even behind the branding colors, even behind the launch date, even behind the meaning of 513 Media. If you study salt in the Bible, there are so many layers and teachings on salt alone. There's the salt covenant in the Old Testament. There's salt used to preserve food and then using it as an exchange for goods and services. And that is legit where we get the word salary today in the English language, because salt was used as a transaction, like money, back then as it is today. God called us the salt of the earth. We are priceless to Him. We are precious to Him. Salt was not the same back then in the Bible as it is now. Salt is such a commodity today. Even if I didn't have salt at my own house, I could go to any restaurant, the McDonald's down the street, and get little salt packets. But back in biblical times, it was so rare. So, for some context and some scripture, a salt covenant, you can find it in Leviticus 2:13, Numbers chapter 18, and 2 Chronicles chapter 13. But these covenants of salt were intended to be lasting and incorruptible. Salt was rubbed all over food so it would not decay. It enhances the taste of food, as we all know today. Some of us need to watch our salt. But it symbolizes how God's people are to add value, richness to society, in a distinct flavor to the world. If you put salt on your tongue versus, say, pepper, you're going to know which one is salt and which one is pepper. Why? Because salt has a distinct taste. Salt does not go bad. It does not rot. It does not fade. A salt covenant was a way of saying this agreement cannot be broken and it is binding forever. And sharing salt. Eating a salted meal together in ancient culture was a sign of loyalty, friendship, and trust. We are building 513 Media. We're building this podcast network. It is a network of voices that preserve truth. We are bringing kingdom into the media space. We're going to have a distinct flavor, a distinct aroma. The world is so saturated with noise. You have to have a distinct flavor, and even to penetrate this world of media. So as I said, we are starting with the podcast network. The Lord has already opened up some doors that are only doors. And when I explain the doors that open when it's time for those launches to happen, you'll understand that these are doors that only the Lord could have opened up. So this is where we're starting, is our Christian podcast network. I am so excited for you guys to meet the hosts. I ask that you just pray and intercede for this company. I am so excited for what the Lord is about to do. This vision, this movement is so much bigger than me, than just this show. There is so much work to do, but the momentum, I can already feel it in my spirit, that this is sincerely just the beginning. And I am so excited to see where we are even 6 months from now, a year from now, of running with this mission. This has been a labor of love this past year. And today we launch. I didn't even know how to design a website until I had to, until the Lord pushed me in the deep end and gave me the patience to walk it out. I'm so grateful the Lord has entrusted me with this company, this vision, this mission, and this movement is just getting started. It's time to stand out and stay salty. I'll talk to you guys so soon. I hope this episode blessed you today. If it did, please rate and review the show. It helps grow the podcast to reach more Proverbs 31 creatives just like you. Don't forget to follow the show so you'll automatically be notified when the next episode drops. I'll be praying for you. See you next week.